What is going on YouTube? Welcome to TJ Mitchell Films, your one-stop shop for everything Jeep and off-road related content. And in today's video, we are going to be getting rid of the factory plastic inner fender liners. We're going to be upgrading them with a set of Skull Krushers off-road aluminum inner fender liners. So if you're not familiar with these, you might be asking why I'm doing this. Well, there's several reasons that you might want to upgrade your inner fenders. First off, at least on the Gladiator, these are so thin and floppy. There was an issue. I had to throw in a couple zip ties in a couple spots because on the freeway at certain speeds, these would just flop and hit the tire. Also, as off-roading is kind of changing, tires are getting bigger. 40s are becoming more of a standard. 37s are now what 35s used to be. So when you're running that large of tires, you're going to run into some problems and you're going to have to change your fenders because you're going to start rubbing here. Lately what I've been seeing a lot is they chop the fender right here and this all comes off, and it gives a lot more clearance, but then you lose your inner fender liner, so you have to do that. Or you go to some tube fenders from somebody like Metal Cloak, and then you'll really need that upgraded inner fender liner because once you take this off, there's nothing in there. The engine bay is just completely exposed. It gives you the protection that you want, plus with some stylish looks. Now, the reason I like these fenders from Skull Krushers Off-Road, they're lightweight, they're made out of aluminum, so they're extremely corrosion resistant, especially me being over here in California. I don't really have to worry about anything happening to these. One of the cool things that they're doing is they have this insert piece, and you can order all sorts of different inserts. I think they can cut out pretty much whatever you want. They could put your logo in there, they could put Darth Vader. They got tons of stuff on there that you can pick, and it obviously just unbolts and you put that on there. It lets you customize your Jeep, and that's what Skull Krushers is all about. This install is actually pretty simple to do, and you could do it with just basic hand tools and drill. I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do it. There's a couple 10mm bolts here, there, and here that you're going to need to pull out first. All right, after that, we got a bunch of these little tabs up underneath here, and then there's two down here that you're going to need to pop out. Most people, they say to use a trim tool, popper tool. I don't have one, but this little nail puller seems to work just fine. So we'll pop those all off and see where we're at. Also, I found it was easier to use a pair of pliers, and I sort of just rip these off. You can get replacements of these. Obviously, they're plastic, super cheap, so I wasn't too worried about that. Now you can see how exposed the whole engine bay is, which is why it is really important to get the inner fenders in there. So I'm doing this because eventually I'm going to be either chopping these fenders, or most likely I'd like to do tube fenders, probably from Metal Cloak. I like the look of theirs. This is kind of a no-brainer upgrade for me. All right, so here comes the fun part where we get to start drilling into the nice new Jeep. The first hole that we're gonna go off of on the passenger side has one of those little pop rivets. I already popped it through, and we're gonna drill this first hole out for the first nut insert. And for those of you that aren't familiar with nutserts, this is the little installation tool. It's got a little bit on the end. Essentially, you can do this without any of this, with just a bolt and some nuts. But this is the nutsert, and I like this tool. It works pretty good, so I think this is going to speed up our job a little bit. This first hole is a little tight, so I recommend using a right angle drill so you can get in there. Otherwise, you'll have a hard time and you might have to take off the fender, which is just another step that we don't want to have to do. What I like about this nutsert tool is it has a spot where you can use a ratchet because this would be kind of hard to turn in here, so getting this ratchet in here makes this pretty easy to install. All right, so now we're going to be positioning the fender in place, and this is a little, it's going to be a little tricky to get it exactly in, but since it's aluminum, it's pretty flexible. So the fender's going to be in here roughly like this. Once we get this one aligned, we can mark and drill all of our next holes. So a little bit of a pain to position this, but not too bad. All right, now that we got this bolt in, we're going to be focusing on these two upper bolts, and we're going to push this up so this is fully up and back all the way where we want it. This might help to have a second set of hands when doing this. And we're going to make a little Sharpie mark. We're going to try and get it right in the center on each side. And now we'll pull the fender out and we'll drill and put these two nutserts in. All right, so the two uppers are installed. We'll put the fender back in, bolt these up, and then we'll come over here, do the same thing, mark, drill, put in the nutsert. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna push this back part of this fender back in where I want it to be and mark this last hole. Perfect. Pull the fender off one last time. The only downside to doing these is it leaves some of your wiring exposed. So I'm gonna go see if I can pick up a couple of the pushing clips and if we can trim the factory liner to fit in there just enough to cover all this. See if we can pull it off. Most of these got destroyed when I was pulling them off. So I went down to the local auto parts store and got a bag of some replacements, and we're gonna do the extra credit project here. Now, the reason for it is because gonna be a lot of mud and stuff, plus the wiring is exposed. So we're gonna shove the stock inner fender liner back up in here, mark it, and trim it, actually. So it will cover up all of this stuff, but we're gonna leave the Skull Krushers fender liner visible. So it'll be a little hybrid. Or we could see where we need to cover is on these red tabs, and if you look on the fender liners on the inside, you can see where it sits. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna mark along here. We might have to do a couple cuts, but we're gonna do one, mark it, cut it off, shove it in there, see what it looks like. And we might have to, you know, come back in here and end up trimming more. But let's just do an initial one and see where we're at. This is kind of what I'm thinking. I'm gonna come up and then over like so. And we're gonna take this straight across to here. So I'm gonna come back and do this. But I think I'm gonna have to come out over here, but let's take this one off, like something like that. That's looking pretty good. So what we're gonna do here to finish this off, it looks like I'm gonna cut, probably like take this section off, and then up here, take a little bit of this off and come back and then continue this. I think I'm gonna take, after here, I'm gonna cut over and cut this inner part down just a little bit. And yeah, I think we'll be good to go. We're gonna tighten up the original 3 bolts and put those new tabs in. and we're good to go. Got our Skull Krushers off-road inner fender liners installed. We got our factory inner fender liner cut to cover up all the wiring and any holes that were in there. So we're looking real good. That's gonna do it for this one, guys. As always, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button so you guys can stay up to date when I post my latest videos. Huge thanks to Skull Krushers for sending these inner fenders out to me. I'm really digging taking my Jeep to the next level.